happening? And welcome back to Everything Meta, episode 25. Joey, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening. We appreciate your support. If you recall, within the last week or so, I was all over the space in Yasha, or at least a couple times, asking folks what they wanted to see in a cryptocurrency. And we're not here to tell you whether or not you're right or wrong in terms of what your views are for what you want to see in a token project, but we are here to discuss it, to see just kind of how it could work, and just give you some of our feedback and guidance. I guess Joey's expertise on how he thinks we could best execute some of your guys' wishes, so that you do know that you are being heard. That being the case, Joey, the first point that people said they wanted in a project, or and I should be clear, this is in no, this isn't in ranked order. This is as it came up in conversation. So the first point was a solid use case. Now I know in the past, for instance, the I guess the uh, best example of this that we have is the Monkey Project, whereas there was no use case. Go get money, and it worked well. And I think we agree it had great potential, maybe still does, but it's an example of a project with no use case that could have worked. So we see that projects can work with or without a use case. The benefit of having a solid use case, however, is what, in your opinion?
Oh, well, purpose. Even projects with no utility, right? No use case. They can form a community, and that's sort of like what was in the Monkey White Paper, right? Is like almost what you see a lot of times is utility doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is volume. Are
Mm-hmm.
people buying and selling, and are more people buying than selling, right? That's generally the only thing that people really care about, right? Now there's things like ETH where it powers the transaction. So anything inside of the ETH ecosystem, that you want to participate in, you need a little bit of ETH in order to power those transactions. Same with BNB.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the zero token, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
want to swap gas free, you just need to burn a little bit of zero, right? When it's ready to rock, which I'm really looking forward to.
For
Uh,
sure.
Gaming tokens are cool, especially if there's some type of reward system, like the way that we set up Guzzler and Jeep Fighter coming up here. Most likely, well, specifically for Guzzlers, like you have a specific amount of tokens when the staking contract and all the NFTs are done. If you're trying to stake 4 parts, right, then you can monopolize the weighting system inside of that staking contract and get more parts. So like the token is basically you have more and you monopolize like the weighted value inside of the staking contract. The more you have, the more rewards, right? The more the contract tells itself like spit out more parts to this staker, right?
Right.
So that these are examples of use cases, utilities. Whether you want to participate in those or not, that's up to you. The value of them, is always determined by the market. If it finds a product market fit, then it can really, it can happen. So yeah, I think there's a lot of projects out there that don't need a token, that don't need a token at all. Uh, at least the standard token. Sometimes
Uh-huh.
NFTs are tokens,
Right.
and those can satisfy a fair amount of, that way everybody has like an equal, the share is very specific, at least on the mint date. Cost this much, so if you want that many, you can pay for it if you want to, and you can assign most of the same utilities onto NFTs that you see inside of tokens. But yeah, I think a solid use case is really important. You see a lot of projects launch, based on mystery and
Hmm.
like a treasure hunt, which is cool. It's exciting. I like treasure hunting too. However, I don't know if it's the best thing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So when not a use case, I mean, what was the impetus? Why did you think it was the right time for Monkey, for instance?
Oh, well, goodness. ETH was $1,000. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
ETH had just gone down like
Yeah.
crazy, crazy amounts to basically the low, or what we saw. Uh,
Sure.
and I think that market sentiment was poor,
Hmm.
and so like just shining a light on what people believe to be value versus what people actually value, right? Which is price action. Um,
Hmm.
it's I just thought it was time, right? Because the meme, right? Return to monkey. It, the people like the human tendencies, right? Like greed and so on and so forth that bring about bearish markets are kind of like like if you return to monkey, maybe the bull market would restart or something, so
Hmm.
um yeah.
And you do believe that that time is coming. We talked recently. You said
Man, it's hard.
July, August.
I'm not a
Yeah.
market expert, right? Obviously, it's really tough. I think we actually flipped bull, like macro bull, on a technical basis.
Mm.
However, the world news is like terrible, dude. Like it's, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? If any other time, you would think like, okay, we're gonna get ready, like that. That thousand, that was the tippy bottom, and then we went up $1,000 from there. We went up 100%, right? Which is really good. So if you bought that, with size, or leverage or whatever people do, then you had a pretty good run. Maybe sold the top, right?
Yeah.
So, or that local top or whatever it is. But like world news is terrible, dude. Like it's so bad. Like
Mm.
rivers are drying up. I don't mean to FUD. I'm just keeping
Yeah.
it real, dude. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Yangtze River is like dry, so the hydroelectric is not functioning over
Hmm.
there. Okay, like there's
Yeah.
another COVID sweeping through China, so they're like locking down again. The Po River, I think, was drying up. The war in Ukraine is stopping, goods from flowing back, natural resources from Russia flowing back into Europe. Their power bills are wild. The political climate is jacked.
Mm.
Everything is like really strange, dude. The ports in Ukraine and Russia, like there was a refusal of a Russian grain shipment because of the war, and but
Mm.
they can't get grain from from the Ukraine. So
Hmm.
what are they going to do? Like it's there's most definitely there might be some type of food Armageddon. So normally under like just normal bad news,
Yeah.
I think that we could see like a little run. Um, but yeah, September, ooh, so we're with Monkey, we're always planning for November. We thought
Hmm.
like, okay, the community can get together and know that it's going to be a grind, right? No, like this is going to be a grind. We're launching. ETH is 1,000. Okay, the
Yeah.
market is extreme there,
Yeah.
right? Like peak of capitulation. Like huge players are getting liquidated. You know this, right? You know that that's what happened, and that's where
Yeah.
we were launching from. So I figure if the community, could get together and return to Monkey and
Hmm.
plan for like a November run. I thought that would have been cool. Like just have fun with it. We're putting Monkey in a game. There's Monkey in another art project coming from Oren. Um, like there there's Monkey NFT. They're free. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like people are working on this project for free. There's another project. They have some ideas on still flipping ape. They were determined to flip ape. So If you guys, if people know that it's going to be a grind and a drawn out process, then it can be fun. You can find out ways to make it fun if that's what you want to participate in. It's like going to a club. That's it. Contracts renounced, it pays you USDC.
Yeah.
I think we paid over I think over $250,000 in rewards from the smart
Mm-hmm.
contract.
Mm-hmm.
So like that,
Yeah.
I did my best, man. I did my best. Try to make a good launch, give people something they could be excited about. When everybody was like, "Oh, everything's going bad." Try to launch something that people could be excited about, like make it a bit nostalgic, like, oh, the bull run is sort of here, like there's a mini bull run happening in Monkey, and everybody's getting paid USDC.
Yeah.
You know what I
That
mean?
that part was great.
Yeah, so do our best.
Yeah. All right. So solid use case has its place, even with the use case. I'm kind of trying to recap what you've said, or at least I'm paraphrasing.
I'll
Um,
paraphrase. I'll try.
okay.
Yeah, I think utility is very important, but does the project even need a token first? Does it
Yeah.
even need a token? Right? Um, First and foremost, the community can be a utility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, paraphrase.
Cool. All right. Works out. Let's go to the second point again, not in ranked order, but simply in order of discussion. Passive income. And you just alluded to it when you talked about the USDC. Um, I mean, this seems like a no-brainer, but I don't want to just gloss over it. What do you think is the draw to passive income in a token project?
Well, it's tough. I think if it's smart contract based and it's out on blockchain and that's what it does, then it exists. It can't really be shut down. It's decentralized, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas I think what people think in token projects is that they're investing in something like real estate, right? They're investing in something and then it's paying them all the time, like a percentage, right?
Right.
The thing is that has to be smart contract based. It can't be, it, there's this thing that's what's known as an active participant.
Uh-huh.
The passive income cannot be generated because of an active participant or the work of others, right? I believe that if an entire, and this is sort of a gray area, I think that if an entire community are the active participants, right? Then there's no centralized leadership. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
basically people all coming together like a cooperative, which
Right.
I think is different than a security.
Sure.
I could be completely wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so when people think and they're shilling passive income, generally that is most likely going to get regulated into the ground. Okay. Like unless it's smart contract based, it's not, you cannot shill that, right? You cannot say that if it's in the smart contract, it's decentralized, it can't be shut down, then there's nothing anybody can really do about it unless they centralize the actual chain, right? And stop that project from happening, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I think that it's cool to have passive income, but like when people are like, oh, we're gonna go buy, when you see that like there's this real estate project out there, bro, that's a that's a tough one.
I think it's a good idea, but yes, I understand the challenges in terms of the backside. I mean, anytime you can collectively pool some resource. I mean, this happens outside of crypto, right? You pool the resources, you buy the properties. Someone there's management, and then there's a quarterly payment, what have you, to or monthly payment paid to the investors. I can understand because
It,
we don't have investors in this space. We have members and uh, supporters and gamblers. So I could understand the challenge there. Um, but I also understand what it means to try to replicate some of the things that we've seen. I mean, maybe to a greater degree of security and without requiring like what's the word I'm looking for? When you have these kind of syndicated uh commercial things, and your investors have to be, I'm looking for a word, the top people that have the most
Accredited.
accredited investors. There you go. Your accredited investors, and so you can kind of circumvent that um, by making it widely available on the blockchain where the people are anonymous, which is maybe not problematic in that what you're now able to do is make up for the lack of accredited investors with a bigger pool of potential investors, and everyone can get a share. It helps people who may not be accredited to still make some money, and reach that point where they may be ultimately accredited on a project down the road. So I mean,
I mean, that is sort of like the idea. We technically, if everybody during 2021 followed the game plan, which is impossible to tell people to follow a very specific game plan. Okay.
mhm,
But if they made use of the opportunity that was available there at the start, all of them would be accredited,
mhm, mhm.
right? All of
Yeah,
them would be accredited. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
So, and then they could invest in things, right? Or you just offer those products or whatever they are outside of the United States. There's things that you can do. But anyway, bottom line, you guys see a lot of passive income stuff out there. That's super cool, especially if it's play to earn, move to earn, work to earn,
mhm,
you know, uh, whatever it is. I think it's super cool stuff. Just I'm not sure if many of the projects out there what they're advertising is not necessarily kosher, right?
mhm.
So,
Right. When Yasha chain.
oh, I don't think we need a chain. It's tough. It does it help the space? No. I think that Doge chain is pretty cool because there's a lot of people with Doge, and so it gives some utility to Doge, right? Where
Mhm,
Doge is the ETH function
mhm.
for Doge chain. Um, SHIB chain would make sense because there's a ton of people holding SHIB, right? Pulse chain makes sense because there's a ton of people holding Hex. Stuff like that, would make sense. We're a really small project. We have really good performance. Our
Yeah.
performance is really good. Our execution is really good. Um, you know, I guess the market will decide if the project is needed. I'm technically a volunteer. There's a ton of devs working on Yasha. No, really, like I'm
Yeah.
just the only person that was like, okay, fine, like I'll dox. If it means we go to 50 million, I'll go and say like, hey, I'm Joey. You know,
Yeah.
like whatever. It didn't matter to me that much. But there's a
Yeah.
ton of devs. I mean, like Rahul, aka Hawk,
Mhm.
Utkarsh, Tree is in there, Sam Coes is in the background, Stevens in the background, Tim Tam. All these people will step up. Jess, you're right, like DZ, Guapo, like all these people are essentially working as volunteers on these various projects to help. And that's kind of what we do. Like if there's one project that has a gap missing, right, or something, and they need like a little help, we'll be like, okay, we're here. What do you
Yeah.
need? You know,
Yeah.
uh, we'll move around. In the case for a project like Zero, right? They need to finish a little development. They can raise, what they need to help finish with some development. They can go ahead have a safe launch, and just move ahead with their project, and they'll go ahead and develop. And if people want to participate in their project prior to, their development being complete, then they're free to do so.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I actually really like the Wonkies, the no gas
Yeah.
dev, the zero
Yeah.
dev. I really
Yeah.
like his approach. I think it's super cool. Just laid back, just get the work done. Still live your life. Don't be fretting too much over everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what you're building, you know that you can have some plans to advertise it or whatnot, but you're not chasing, you're not in a chase, racing
Right.
other people. So
Yeah. That's typically not my way, but I get it. I think there's a certain level of confidence, and you want to see a steady hand. Making progress without the sweat. Sometimes is good to see. It elicits confidence. It exudes confidence, and so you're like, yeah, I can trust this guy or
yeah.
this team.
Well, it's like a lot of times, you're working with different development firms. It's
Mhm.
rare in the case of Flash tools, right? Like their dev team, or they're all developers. They're all like experts, right? So they can
Mhm.
build everything they need. Most projects, have some type of project manager, like a CEO or something, and there is development firms. And so you can only move at the speed of development. Like with Neko, for instance, like Z's in charge of the development for the wallet. He's working with a development firm. They're on their own timeline. The parts for the hardware wallet, they take time, right? D's managing that, the hardware wallet development and build.
Mhm.
And so like it's going to take however long it takes. If people get bored in the meantime, if they need to go do something else, that's up to them. The game plan is to sell hardware wallets, right? It's a
Yeah.
basic model, you know. So
Yeah. Let me get to the next point here. One of my favorite topics. Burns and reflections. Reflections and burns, both simultaneously in the same project. What do you say?
I think it's okay, but I think that people look into burns a little bit too much, or they don't understand the mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
or understand the tokenomics, right? It's sort of like a novelty thing. And so I think you see like a lot of that stuff happening. Like ultimately, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's have this
you know?
conversation, Joey, because I don't agree. You
Yeah,
said
I know
doesn't
you.
matter why.
Well, you're talking to someone who's launched, like God knows how many projects, So
Yeah,
yeah,
to my zero, and
yeah.
I'll still fight you on this. Why
Okay,
do you
give me
say it doesn't matter?
one.
Why does it not matter, Joey?
Because the only thing, like in terms for price action,
Yeah,
burning does not create price action.
burning raises the floor.
No, it doesn't. No, Cliff's token contract is the smart contract. From what that might have been the first burn contract, right? What's called a burn contract that you might have seen. It's totally different than burning tokens, right? It's like a totally different thing. It's logic. It basically says we're going to say that the equal amount of tokens and ETH or whatever pair is in the liquidity pool, we're going to modify that and directly say that the token is worth a different price and take the liquidity tokens out and burn them and take them off the market, right? It burns the liquidity. It's different. What people say is burning is they take tokens and they send to a dead address, right? If they buy and they burn the tokens, then yeah, it can technically raise the floor, but there is no floor if nobody's buying, right? So the only thing that matters for price action is their volume. Are more people buying than selling? That's it. Unless you have a tricky smart contract like Cliff.
Well, because you like to ignore the human factor, and what I mean by that is the psyche, the what's getting someone excited about the project.
It's flawed though, is the thing. Like
Yes, we
it
are all flawed.
yeah, but it doesn't it
Yeah,
doesn't follow logic, right? Just because you
yeah.
take tokens off the market, it actually makes the market cap go down, right? Like on a technical basis, you take tokens out of circulation to get the true market cap. You're going to take the price of the token and multiply it by the amount of tokens in circulation. If you take tokens out of circulation, your market cap goes down. The value of the tokens does not go up. The circulating supply might go down, and so the tokens become more scarce, but ultimately it doesn't matter unless people are buying, right?
Right, but what I'm trying to say is if people are excited by buys and burns, and they are then more likely to target a project that has them, then you will see both the excitement of people showing up to the project and the benefit of the raising of the floor from the tokens being put in the dead wallet. I'm not saying that a burn
The
by
floor
itself
doesn't
is helpful.
raise, though. You see what I'm saying? The floor doesn't raise. Now, in the case that there's both burns and reflections on the contract, okay, like for instance, you look at Monkey, okay,
Mm-hmm.
with Monkey, there's reflections in USDC, okay. I think 50% of the supply was sent into the dead address. Okay. So if you own 1% of the supply, you're actually getting 2% of the weight inside of the pool for the reflections. Right. So you own 2% of the circulating supply if you bought 1% of the fully
Of the total,
distilled
total
supply.
supply. Yeah.
Right. And so like your reflections, you can base it off of 2% as opposed to 1%. So in that case, that can make sense. Right. But most of the blue chip projects out there you see have tokens unlocking, right? And the market cap continues to go, like the true market cap continues to like if the price remains the same over time, the true market cap would go up because more tokens are released into circulation with a lot of blue chip projects out there, right? Whether it's for VCs or team or just ecosystem, there's tokens being trickled out. So you're being diluted little by little. So people like burns because it, instead of being diluted, it kind of can manage some dilution. But that has nothing to do with the floor price, right? Like if you burn, the market cap goes down. People shouldn't even look at market caps, right? Because if I send 1% of the supply into the LP, right? Like my market cap could be, blown up to whatever you really want it to be. It could say like $1 billion. That doesn't matter. Fully diluted doesn't really matter. The only thing that should matter to somebody technically is like the price and the amount of tokens you have.
Well,
All the other burns, minting, anything else doesn't, it's not going to matter that much.
here's my rebuttal to that. Tell me where I'm wrong, if I'm wrong. I say to you that I know with full confidence, 100% confidence, that Cliff cannot, will not ever go to $0. Do we agree?
Yeah, because there's liquidity.
Well, because the value of Cliff held in the dead wallet is greater than zero. As long as there is a value that someone is holding, that someone in this case is a dead wallet, that can't be sold. If 36% of the project is held, imagine it was my wallet, except for I don't have it, I can't open it to sell it. Then I know that at least 36%, if everyone else sold all of their cliff somehow, and there was never another buyback, 36% of the total supply is already in this dead wallet, which means that the value of Cliff can't go to zero because 36% of it is held by a person who will never sell.
Okay, you're looking at it wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the liquidity pool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You look at the amount of ETH. I don't know how many ETH are in the Cliff liquidity pool right now. Maybe like 80 ETH. Okay. If you look at the holders, right, can they sell 80 ETH worth of tokens? The answer is yes. They can sell 80 ETH worth of tokens, right? Which is half of what the combo, the pair shows. Okay. And if that's the case, then it could technically go to very close to zero, right? That's how it works. It can't go all the way to zero, right? Because there's fractions and decimal points, right? And there's still liquidity, but it can go very close, to zero. And it has nothing to do with the dead wallet, right?
I'm gonna have to figure out this mind. I feel like I'm being tricked.
No,
Like
that's the
my
truth.
mind is playing tricks on me, man.
No. That's the truth.
Yeah,
That's the mechanics. That you look at the liquidity pool. If there's
yeah.
80 ETH in there, and the holders, okay, have 80 ETH, of tokens that they're able to sell, then they could drain the liquidity pool by selling.
They can make it, and maybe this is a distinction with with very little difference, but I think that what you're describing is a situation where there's value. Cliff can be worth the Cliff or whatever token can be worth whatever the number is, but there's no liquidity left to actualize your profit, but there is still a value. In other words,
I mean, it'll be a fraction, right? If somebody sells 80 ETH, like there's a project called Suka, right? It has like 2 million in liquidity or something. I think the top holder has 2 million in their bag. They could sell their bag and the project would go to zero, right? So that's the case of poor liquidity and not the greatest distribution. Luckily, the guy's at a diamond-handed Chad, So I don't think that he would do that, right? There's a lot of people that wouldn't do that. However, in the case of a lot of these projects, if the circulating supply in the holders, if their value is greater than the amount of liquidity in the pool,
yeah,
absolutely, the project can go to zero. The dead address is exactly that. It's dead. There's no value there, right? That's how it works, dude. Yeah.
If there's no value in the dead address,
that's why it's dead.
It's not storing value. What you're telling me is, if I cut a pie into fourths and I stuck a fourth in a drawer, that drawer no longer has a quarter of a pie.
No, hold on. You're looking at it wrong.
Yeah, educate me.
The amount of ETH.
Yeah.
In the LP.
Right.
Right. If the holders have that amount of ETH or more, they can sell all of that. The dead wallet is not going to buffer the amount that they could sell. Right. Eventually, it's possible that so many tokens, because of burns or whatever, end up in the dead wallet that people aren't able to attain the amount of tokens that it would take at the given market cap to have more value than the LP, so they would not be able to sell. Also, the mechanics of how these liquidity pools work, it can't go all the way to zero. It can get very close. It would be considered zero, but it because of fractions and whatnot, it wouldn't ever quite get there, right? Their price impact would be too great. But yeah, they could definitely, the dead wallet is not gonna, that's the mechanic. That's how it works. That's how it works.
I'm gonna have to meditate over that one, but I don't want to hold up the video. So where are we with reflections, and which one do you think holds more value?
Oh, I think reflections are cool. I think a lot of our projects have reflections. It's kind of, maybe it's a bit antiquated in the day and age. People want LARPs, they want mystery plays. Reflections, I think, are cool, especially on a deflationary basis. If every transaction goes, is removed from the supply, like Neko, right? Then I think it can be pretty cool.
Okay. Can they work together, burns and reflections, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. The Yasha contract has reflections in ETH, right?
Yeah, I forgot that change. That was the V3. Was it? Yeah.
Yasha has reflections in ETH, and it has the Cliff LP burn function.
Yeah, makes sense. Got it. I wonder why, because in my experience, a lot of projects aren't, I think, utilizing the pair of those.
You know what? The Yasha contract is a super advanced contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Budosh has come out with a few that might be better, that maybe is saving for some time in the future or something. But the Yasha contract is pretty solid. It's a solid contract.
Really cool. So let's see here.
We don't really tell people that. You know what I mean? We're not like saying like, oh, buy this because of the contract. No, it's just You know,
Yeah.
is what it is. It needs volume. Reflections don't matter unless there's volume. If there's like $1,000 a day in volume, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a that great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Community multi-sig wallet. For instance, the purpose of this might be to execute on a trade. You're in a project. Let's say instead of having individual buys trickle in, we all agree that we're going to, at a certain time, a certain date, make a big buy to influence the chart or in some way strategically. That's a thing that can be handled if we have a multi-sig wallet with kind of some representative, uh, some democratic way to decide who gets to be the signatory. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think community multi-sigs are cool. I think Boo's most recent launch, Pepe, I think has a community multi-sig wallet, right? Um, people the issue with like a lot of community votes and stuff, especially when it's like management of funds and whatnot, is people like vote for all sorts of weird things. They
Yeah,
propose all sorts of strange things. So I think yeah, uh, you know, I think it's cool. I think it's cool, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, why not?
One of the things I want to impress upon the folks when I was on the VC in Yasha was uh, while you guys, the core team, you're not going to kind of tell us what to do, how to do it, both maybe for practical reasons and legal ones. There's nothing that stops us from coming up with a plan of action from within and being on the same page. Like we can be as organized as we choose to be, as
Yep.
if it were coming from up top.
100%. Well, bro, like we're just volunteers.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, it's a DAO. Um, especially Yasha, it's a DAO. Like the community voted to launch the pause token. Okay.
yeah,
So like they should be moving forward with the development. I don't have a ton of time to like babysit like it can't be a hundred, 500 people. Like, yes, we want to launch a charity project, and Joey is the person that is going to manage all the stuff. Like, bro, I bought it. You know what I mean? I was, one of I was down for the cause, but like I don't know, people can't just sign me up for things to
right.
do, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and if they vote for it and that's what they want to do, if they want to launch a charity project, we can't, who are we to say no?
hmm,
We're not going to do that, right? We're here to serve, but not yeah. So anyway, yeah. So there's stuff like that, and yeah, the DAO should get super organized. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of sub compartments, right? And different groups and whatnot. Hopefully they're positive. I know I've seen a few groups that are like only there for comedic relief on bashing us, so there's that.
yeah,
um but yeah, they can, man, it's DAO. You could do it. There's a ton
yeah,
of value that you could extract out of this, right? Like
yeah.
Steven's there working on his mushroom project, gets a ton of support. Dave and Grant, they're working on their bot project. We'll see. We're trying to light a fire under them. Get
Mm,
them going. Um, you can extract a lot of value if you want and get a lot of support from the community if you want. If you don't want to, that's up to you. Not everybody is from that cloth, right? Not
right.
everybody wants to do that.
Yeah, but just to point out, as you said, that there's no the only limit is the limit that we impose on ourselves. Like sometimes I think we get confused with what it is that you guys are not going to do, or because it maybe doesn't make sense to do. But if we have an idea that is kind of hyper coordinated or even somewhat centralized inside of a decentralized structure, we could still move forward with that.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like you have a plan, Ken.
Me, what do? I just yeah, I mean, I do. I have some ideas. I'll say I have ideas, and I always do. I am much more of the belief that it's easier to move forward if you have buy-in. So I like to generate some kind of buy-in before kind of saying, hey, why don't we do this? Like, so, you get ideas, you poll the people, you see what they want, and then you try to come up with a plan that fits all the things you've heard. And then you recognize, like, in my situation, I was on one night and then the next morning to make sure I caught people in different time zones and all that. But, maybe heard from 20 folks. And I know that that's not really a representative sample of Yasha. So, you know, I might float some things out, but I mean, likewise, I'm no
Well,
different
Ken,
than anybody else.
I'll tell you, out of most of the people in the community, if you have some type of plan or some type of methodical thing that you're working on, right? I think that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that it's cool to see ambition, right? Hopefully, ambition without avarice, and organization and good leadership. I think is awesome. Um, you know, it could be as simple, like there's plenty of people that send pitches, right? They just send a deck. But it is a DAO. There's a ton of community there. And as long as it's not divisive, right? Then I think it's really good.
yeah,
Yeah. I like, for instance, the Peace Project, Anthony, the one that wanted to launch, he drove down, I took him out to pizza and he wanted to do this project. I think it's super cool. The people that they had involved, the mission, who are we to say, like, oh, don't do it? Like, oh, blockchain doesn't need that. Like,
yeah,
you can let the market decide. Does it hurt, my reputation? I hope not. Whether something succeeds or fails, that there's a lot of people that don't try anything. You know what I mean? And they just criticize, or they don't know how difficult it is, or how bad somebody wants it, and and so at least if somebody goes out there and tries, then they know. You know what I
right.
mean? And I think that deserves a little respect. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Also, too, there's two things I'll say, at least how I take them is, you only get so many bites at the apple. I mean, you can that goes on both sides. Like, you can only rally the support so many times of people, and you want to follow through. It's easier to follow through if you have public support. It's easier to get public support if you're doing something they believe in. Um, you know, so it's kind of one of those things, like, if you're going to give your time, I'm not a super human to the point where, if I'm the last person at the meeting every day and there's no one there and I'm showing up every day and no one's showing up, after a while, I will wear down, like, like most normal people, and come to conclude that maybe this isn't working out. So what I like to do is pretty much, I like to take care of a lot of those things on the front end. Like, if you say this is what you want, and then we build it, and now you have it, at least we're further down the road than if I say, here's an idea I had, why don't you join me?
oh goodness, sometimes, man, they just choose you, dude. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's a lot of this is bro, like sometimes it's just chosen. Like, we basically, like, all we do at Yasha is we volunteer to help projects launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
The public perception or how they attach that onto people, that's up to them. We never went in so, gosh, we never started any channels. We never, we're trying to get followers. Like, we thought that the problem that we were solving, right, is that there's like a lot of rugs, there's a lot of scams out there, and so, like, basically create a launch pad where we can vet the projects, and help them, and that's about it. If it's a good idea and they need help, we can help incubate the project. We can make sure that it's safe, and basically that's like, I wouldn't say it's a stamp of approval, you know what I mean? But we, it's, you can never force somebody to work on something for the next 10 years if they don't want to. Like, just because we help somebody launch something doesn't mean they're going to work on the project forever. You know what I mean? We can do our best to see like what their level of steadfastness or ambition, that they can, their longevity, what they want to commit to working on a project. We can try to gauge that a little bit, but it's imperfect, right? Because we're not them. And then the mechanics and whatnot, we can make sure that it's safe. And so that, I think that was where we found a bit of a product market fit, is that like we basically can launch something and make sure like absolutely it cannot, nothing bad can happen to it. And then at a certain point, once somebody has a reputation or whatnot, and they're cool, then we can kind of like let go, of some of that. Like I'm not sure if we ever put any specific time frame onto how long, you know what I mean? Because like once they're good, once everybody pretty much trusts them, and their KYC, most everybody that launches KYCs with us, that's one of our requirements, that we know who they are, just in case like one day they do something dumb.
Yeah, you gotta go kneecap them one day. No, but that's cool, and we'll continue to I'll continue to show up. There's something that I'm very interested in, and I know you're very not. And I come from a certain
what burns
from a certain project that I had said that I wanted to see as a token project, then decided I didn't want to see as a token project, and now I'm kind of interested in seeing it as a token project. I know, PL, there's that face, man. You look, it's almost fatherly. That look of disappointment was like, oh my gosh, not this token, not this project.
Well, you know what? It's a free world, but there's some stuff, bro. It's a perfectly good business model without any token. If you have a token that goes up and it goes down, like Pochi didn't need a token, right? Like Docty could have very well made dogs, NFT dogs that interact in the metaverse, and sold dogs and marketed it to a whole new slew of people. The token was really cool. If fucking went up to 20 million, and then it traded sideways, and then people move on to the next one. Tokens go up, they go down. We're targeted for our launches a lot of times, right? And people feel like they have to hold, and meanwhile, like all the people that are just there for the launch, they snipe, they do whatever, fair play. They're like, they're in and they're out, they're to the next one. They might do 5 that same day, and so then you have a chart and people are like, oh, is the project dead? It's like, no, it's not. Like, they're working on the project. So if you have, unless you have a ton of cash, Ken, like, some of these devs, like shout out Apollo Dev, shout out Alpha Dev, shout out some of these devs that have a ton of cash and they're able to just send these things, right? With their money, they just apply the ETH and they send it to $200 million market cap by themselves, right? Unless you have that kind, eventually it'll go up, it'll go down. Maybe people will catch on. If it's used as a rewards token, it's going to have sell pressure, because that's like, people aren't going to have the token as a means of commerce, right? To go buy things with that token. They're going to get rewards and they sell it. And that's how they get USDC or whatever preferred cryptocurrency they have or that they want to use. So there will be sell pressure. Now, I'm not saying that it will, it'll just, go down, or maybe you have, maybe it finds a product market fit and it just sends, you know what I mean? Like Cliff somehow found a product market fit at that time, and that, at that time, and 11,000 holders. Now you have 11,000 holders of people that might not even want to be there for too long. That is difficult to deal with, right? A ton of holders. So there's that. You know what I mean? And why, like, Pochi could be a perfectly good business plan without a token. You know what I mean? Yeah, watching the chart is like, it's tough. It's not always the greatest thing.
I'll only allude to this because we're recording but I think of it as a workaround for giving value to youth, whereas you may not want to give them cash because there may be some challenges to that,
I don't know if you
right?
can give. I don't know if youth can interact with cryptocurrency. Okay, there's a lot. There's okay. Listen, passive income. Okay, burns,
Yeah.
reflections. These are all things that require an active participant, and so I think that you need to look like they need an active participant. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're giving rewards, if you're
Yeah.
certain things that unless it's completely community driven and you're not making any of the decisions and it's
Mhm.
fully decentralized and everything is based t- on software, right? The software is the active participant. Then you can't necessarily go down that path, right? So
And I think that says it. I think that does it. That thing that we discussed earlier in this very thing in this recording that you just said, I think is the awakening, is the challenge of having to be hands off. It's easier to manage the business aspect without that thing hanging over your head. So yeah.
bro, like you could have a perfectly good business.
Yeah.
Man, people have
Yeah.
perfectly good businesses that don't have tokens,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I just gotta think of a still a workaround, but nonetheless, we're let me try to get these other ones done.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey, it's good talk. All right, token count. Another thing that Joey doesn't think matters, but this isn't my suggestion. People said they want to see a token count in the millions, and you say it doesn't matter because either way, no matter what it is, there's going to be those tokens are going to represent a percentage of the project, no matter how many they are. I say it matters because you can get a greater price on a large number of tokens and wait it out longer if you have the more tokens you have, right? If a token project starts off with more tokens, you can buy more for less and maybe have to hold longer as people interact. But it's easier from a retail perspective to say, I was in early on a project. I mean, just think of Cliff. You get in on Cliff, and what was it? It was 750 million for 400 bucks, something like that. 750
Yeah,
million
like
tokens.
point
So
zero seven six 760. Yeah.
yeah, so like, sure, I'll take that. But what if the price were instead uh 4,000? How many fewer people would have gotten in on the pre-sale?
Sorry, if it was oh,
If the buy-in price were 10 times what it actually was.
no, that would just mean that like the raise is larger, the starting market cap is going to be larger. It has no bearing on it. So the mechanics of the amount of tokens have nothing to do like with the price. Like it,
No, but how much you can afford to buy in. Like sometimes you want to feel like you're holding a. Again, I'm talking about the psychological aspect of saying,
no,
w-
it's flawed. The only thing that you're buying is a percentage. You figure that percentage out. You know, if you buy 1%, you buy 2%. Anybody that does this full time, they never go by like rarely, unless it's a hard, set amount of tokens. Nobody that does this like goes by, oh, I bought this many. Most
I
people are
just
like,
want you
oh,
to
I
know this
bought
isn't my
1%.
list. This list came from the community.
Well,
I'm
then
just
they're
letting you
learning
know.
now.
I'm
You
just
know what I
letting you
mean?
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then they're learning. Yeah, I mean, people go by token count, but like it doesn't matter. It's all ratios. It's all percentages. It's all ratios. The amount of tokens you have and the price, that is how you get your value, right? But in terms of everything else, like how much the tokens can be worth, that's all a ratio, right? Like if you have one, you can have one token,
Yeah.
right?
And
You can
just
have
split it
one
up by a
token.
thousand ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could have like a little tiny percent of that one token. And if the price is $1 million, then you just have that $1 million times your decimal point of however whatever percentage of the one token you have. And
Yeah.
that's how you get your value. If people everything else is optics, right? Aesthetics and optics. And if
Yes, and I'm saying people are attracted to those. That's the part where I think you and I tend to miss each other. Is that
no, it's all over the place though, dude. Like
yeah,
Shib,
I agree with you.
yeah, Shibnobi,
Yeah,
these things had like quadrillions of tokens,
yeah,
right? And,
69 septillion tokens with
yeah, whatever it
Shinobi.
is, right?
That's
And
a ton.
yeah,
Yeah,
but then like Bitcoin has, a smaller amount of tokens, right? So
yeah,
yeah, it doesn't matter. Like you see it all over the spectrum. You see ones with insane amounts of tokens with tons of zeros, and then you see ones with small amounts of tokens. And there's I don't know where SHIB got to, like 50 billion or something. I don't know what market cap it got to, and you see
yeah.
what Bitcoin got to with its amount of tokens, and you see where Hex got to with its amount of tokens. You see where ETH got to with its amount of tokens. It's all over the place, dude. It's a full spectrum.
Well, so I don't disagree with, like, again, just for pushback's sake. I'm not telling you that I believe that there is an actual difference in the value. Like you said, it could be one token, 100 tokens, a billion tokens. That's not really what matters in terms of the value of the portion that you hold. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Full stop. That's it. But what I'm saying is there are people who care how many tokens of a project they hold. Like
Yeah.
that is a thing.
Yeah, I care
Like
how many tokens, because you multiply them by the price, and that's how you figure out how much money you have, right? So the amount of tokens is good, but the total supply does not matter that much.
but sometimes there are situations where sometimes people want to hold billions of tokens or trillions of tokens. And I'm telling you what I've heard over time.
Doesn't matter,
I, but if it matters to them, it matters. Like if the people are telling you what would make them feel good and that would make them support a project, I know it has no practical
No,
difference.
bro, that is not a reason to support a project.
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But if you're building a project to meet the needs and people are telling you what would make them feel good, even if you don't agree, give it to them. That's what I.
Like,
That's I mean, you know.
there was a time, okay, where people, would get 100,000 ETH.
Yeah.
There was a time where people would donate 100 ETH at a time, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And now, like, it's different. Same with Bitcoin. There was a time where a pizza guy ordered a pizza, right, with
Yeah.
a ton of Bitcoin, and now people are like, I just want one Bitcoin, right? So
Right.
it's all yeah, the amount doesn't matter.
Oh, Joey.
It
I
doesn't.
agree. I agree, and I agree that it makes no practical difference.
No, like the things like the burns, taking away supply,
Yeah.
token count, these are all rudimentary, and they have no function in the mechanics of how it works, right?
I'm gonna take this a slightly different approach to this. If I were interested in investing in a project, um, and I said I don't know what I want to invest in, but I don't care, whatever it is, anything. You know what? I'm interested in the sciences. Who cares? What is it? Here's one. I like purple. This has a purple logo. I'll invest in it. You might say the purple logo has nothing to do with our ability to be successful right now.
Branding
Well,
is
what I'm
okay. So you're saying token count is part of branding, the aesthetic?
yes, or at least the emotional aspect to some for what projects they want to get in.
That's fine. I'm telling you, listen, if there is 1 billion tokens and somebody is so set on buying a billion tokens of something, they're not going to buy a billion tokens of the project if it's at any
Yeah,
significant price.
yeah,
You know what I mean? At 100 billion tokens, if they want to buy 1 billion tokens, they'll buy 1% of the supply, right?
yeah.
Billion tokens. So like people should not go around looking at projects like saying like, oh, I want 100 trillion tokens, and so they're gonna go try to buy. If it doesn't fit that parameter, like they're just not gonna buy. Like it shouldn't. It should. I'm telling you, it's rudimentary. It doesn't make sense. They should move past it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Do I agree with what you said? But I still think it matters to some people, even if we don't think it should. It does, and this is what the community has said. So like, you know, if you were again thinking about putting together a project that's going to appeal to the community, and the community says this is important, since it doesn't matter whether it's one or a trillion, then give them what they want. Like if they
Yeah,
want to,
okay, that's fine. But I'm saying the reasoning behind wanting one thing over the other is flawed. It doesn't make sense. Yeah,
fair.
I'll go ask. I'll go ask. I have a bunch of friends. They manage funds and do this for a living full time, dude, like 20 hours a day. And I'll be like, hey, like, when you're trying to buy, you know what? It it it, it does kind of make sense. Like for ETH, for certain things, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy 1,000 ETH, right? And then you go ahead and buy 1,000 ETH. In that case, yes, right? But you know what the price is. You're not trying to buy 1% of ETH, right? It's impossible, basically, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, in terms of like Bitcoin, ETH, certain things like that, then yes, it matters because there's like a pretty like known value and it's a high value. So you're gonna be like, I'm gonna buy 5 ETH today. And then I'm gonna buy another 5 ETH. And I'm gonna buy another 5 ETH. And so you'll go by token amount in that regards, right? But for some of these token projects, like it's so hard to tell. They fluctuate so much. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to buy 5 Cliff per day. You could do that, I guess.
Well, I think it's also really prevalent in projects where there is a burn, because you're also thinking when this thing burns, how many can you be left holding? Not just as it pertains to the ratio or the proportion to the overall tokens that the project began with, but as the burn is happening. Now, I know we just had a whole nother conversation on burns, whether they matter or not, but I'm just saying, I think there's another reason why people may hold.
Psychologically, that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm saying like it's not. I don't necessarily think it's going to get people to where they want to get to, right? Like that with that mindset. Maybe on ETH, on Bitcoin, buy 1 Bitcoin a month. Sure, like that's fine. But like max transaction, max transaction. That'll get you where you want
to go. Yeah. Let's see.
Not financial advice.
On a related note, the number 6 point was provide crypto education. Mm-hmm. That I want to say T called crypto kindergarten.
Bro, this is what we do. People that have been with it, we literally just open ourselves and give information, and people can ask whatever they want and they learn. And I get DMs all the time, dude. Where you got to think, like at the peak of our little ecosystem is something like 20 something thousand holders, dude. I get DMs. Okay. Man. And people will say like, oh, like the most important thing I've learned is like, we've learned so much, being here, being a part of this. We've learned so much. And so the next bull run, they're like, we're prepared now. Many of them, it was their first crypto. They got brought in from real world. I'll call it real world. Yeah. One of their friends was like, oh, open a central exchange account, get a MetaMask, hopefully Neko Mask soon. They'll say that instead. Yeah. And and boom, and there you go. Now you go Uniswap and you swap, and boom, you're in DeFi all of a sudden. And they learn. They're like, oh my goodness, whole new world. Now they can go gamble on shitcoins all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree that the education is necessary. I think that we do get a good amount of informal education. And even in my stubbornness, talking to you at least gives me more things to consider. I have to at least go re-examine my beliefs, even if I'm not fully converted yet. So I think that's always good to have to.
Well, I think that what you're saying makes sense for like blue chip projects. And I think that's where we're like, I think blue chip projects, you're like, okay, I'm going to buy 5 ETH. And you think in token amount, right? However, I think most people are not looking at the amount of ETH, okay, unless you're rich or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to open up a 3,000 ETH. I know somebody, that, sorry, a shout out. I know one guy, he's like, okay, I'm going to long ETH with 3,000 ETH, and leverage this 30,000 ETH from 1460 to 1660 and get that $200 move, right? And that's like I don't even know what that is. That might be like 600,000 in profit for him, right? Just that move. And so there's people like that, and they're going by like, okay, 1,000 ETH, 2,000 ETH, 3,000 ETH, okay. And then there's people that accumulate. They're like, okay, I'm going to buy 5 ETH every week, or whatever, and that they have different DCA strategies. But there's other people like normal. They take a bit of their paycheck and they go buy ammo, right? And so they think those people think in terms of like single tokens, right? I'm going to buy 1 box of ammo each week, each paycheck. I'll buy another box of ammo until I have 50 boxes of ammo, right? That's similar. However, I think you can also do that same thing because they're fractions, right? Because they have decimal points. You can say, I'm going to buy $1,000 per week of ETH for the next year. And then, whatever it ends up, and then you can DCA based on your dollar amount. So you can go both ways. However, for shitcoins, I would not go based on the token amount because there's so much variability. You know what I mean? Go by the percentage. Like if you're buying into a launch, I would go by like the percentage, because sometimes you could go swap exact tokens is what you're doing, but most people don't do that. They swap exact ETH, right? What do you do when you buy a launch? Do you type in the number of tokens or the amount of ETH?
Tokens. I'm a
You
token
type in the
guy.
amount of tokens.
Usually because I'm also calculating for the whatever the taxes are. So like I know the form. Like if you told me it was 6%, 3%, 10%, I know how to put in the amount to say, well, if I want this many tokens, I need to buy this amount, so I get this many. I'm
Do you
left
have
with.
failed transactions?
Not many.
Okay, because like if you put in the exact token amount and it's like, let's say you have 1 ETH, right, in your wallet.
Yeah.
You put in the exact token amount and it's like 0.75 ETH, right? You're like, okay, I have enough for gas. But then like the price just keeps going up. Pretty soon that exact token amount might be 2 ETH. And you're like, oh shit, I can't buy it anymore. And that can happen.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess the other thing that's important about me is if I miss when you say launch. So in my mind, if I'm not in on a pre-sale, I'm not buying for 2 days. I'm buying when it's on that kind of second day red long ugly candle to drop.
So that might not be good either, right? Like,
well, but I can't lose. Like I'm not gonna lose my position. At most, I'll get a better price,
right,
as it's going down, versus the price is going up and I'm missing out.
Yeah, you got to be a fan of a project.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like things like Zero, I think that works, right? Because obviously it's going to go up, people are going to sell off, then it's going to find a floor, and then hopefully it goes back up, right? Whereas like other things, you want to get in right from the get go and have a position.
For sure. Right. If whenever I'm in a position to do that, absolutely. But when I miss out, I'm always the day 2 guy. I mean, like even accidentally, like I'm the guy that finds out about some awesome project like the day after lunch, and now I'm like, I'll wait until Yasha, obviously. But
I'm a first minute guy, unless I see momentum. Man, I'll tell you what, dude. If there's volume, if there's momentum, if there's more people buying, it does not matter if your first day, if you have a good feeling, and have some conviction. If there's nobody buying and nobody selling, right? Like, where is it going to come from?
Yeah, I've been in so many scenarios though, Joey. It's like you get in. I bought I won't name it. Like maybe within the last 3 weeks. So I'm always the put your toe in guy first too. Like I'm never going all the way in with my first buy. I want to see what's up. Put in like $60 in a project, like all in $60 with gas fees. Like nothing really. And I mean, I was so early. I was so proud of myself, and I got so rugged,
Oh,
so
damn.
rugged. And yeah, so you're like, I'm early, and there's lots of volume, and then it's all over. Or you wait a couple days, and it's like you wait to see. Well, I guess no one else got rugged.
Well,
Maybe
if
it's not a
you're
rug.
maybe that means you're trying. I don't know what to think.
Yeah,
Man, I don't know what
yeah,
to think anymore. I think some of these people they're crazy. Like Paul like
yeah,
yeah, there needs to be
yeah.
some accountability too. Yeah.
The new goal is just DCA Cliff until
It's
people are
pumping.
buying.
It's pumping today. I
Oh my
DM'd her. I was like,
gosh.
wow, look at it go.
Yeah.
I was like,
By the
I had this. I'm like, we can do this. Let's send it. I was
yeah.
pumped. And then somebody DM me, they're like, why is Cliff pumping? I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes you just wake up and you're like, you just want to test to see how many people out there are left to sell. It's
Yeah.
11,000 of them. That's more than other projects. You know,
It's a perfect storm. This consider this a free commercial for Cliff in the midst of the last segment and a half of the show is you gotta it's 36% burnt, almost 37%, 36 and a half at least last I checked.
Mhm.
And the only way you can get to a sizable burn, like a 70% burn, so there's 3% Uniswap, and the rest is held by someone. So in order for you to get the burn you're looking for, people have to sell. That's it. There's no other way to get for instance, to a 70% burn, unless some people sell. Now you don't want the sales to come in a cluster with no buys, but sales do have to happen in order for us to transfer the tokens into the burn. For those of us who like burns and think they matter and want to see their token burned to oblivion, then that's what has to happen. So a lot of people are like critical. Oh no, we had so much momentum and then people started selling. You need exactly that. And I think for the first time in a very long time, I saw the buyback and burn feature executed flawlessly in terms of there were sales, there was a buy, the next sales had to be sold at a higher amount, the next buys came in higher, there was another buyback and burn. There were like three within a 6 hour period.
I think
Really helped the chart.
you're probably thinking about it uh, too too hard. You probably just rolled out of bed and pressed the button.
I I don't know because we haven't seen them. We haven't seen a big burn in a long time. We had
Do you know
three
the
consecutive burns.
you know what ethnomethodology is?
Yeah,
Yeah, grabbing patterns based on
yeah.
your
Or
personality and over time, like how you developed. I think is the only way to crystallize pure chaos into some pattern and opinion. It could be just pure chaos. It could just be pure
that's
chaos.
ethnography, the general study of watching other people do stuff,
Yeah.
right? and figuring that out. So like for me, I was telling someone in our community just today that I spent a lot of time watching the patterns on when there's a burn. And just last night, Joey, to my credit, I took a bunch of little crappy things that I had and I rolled them all over into Cliff. And I said, we're about due. And I could,
Yeah.
and offline, I'll show you my timing if you don't believe me. But I got it last
Bro,
night, man, because I'm
trade,
watching these patterns.
trade the birds then.
Yeah.
If you're up like 50% off of your move last night, you might as well. You know what I mean? That's how you win.
Yeah. That's also how you get left behind.
Yeah. Well, all right. I guess
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fear of missing out is better the thrill of winning. You know what I mean? And that's
I want to win.
yeah.
Been in Cliff since day two.
Oh, beast.
Yeah. So I need to win.
Oh,
No, famine because I was chasing. It never went down, so I kept chasing. Normally, you wait on the second day red candles, which never happened in Cliff.
oh, it did. That's when I bought. I bought the dip.
On the second day,
I think so. Yeah, or maybe it was
or
day one.
well, yeah. Uh,
I was
I
too
bought
busy. I was too busy at launch, and then when the bots started selling, because they're
yeah,
like things get botted. It's normal. It's DeFi. Like people are
yeah.
obsessing over getting rid of bots and everything. It's whatever. Okay, like I don't know. So I
I
I was like fighting. I was like, okay, they're gonna sell. I'm be like, I'm gonna buy some more. They're gonna sell. I'm gonna buy some more. So like every time it was going down, I just kept buying because
yeah.
like somebody's got to do it. For
I was chasing. I was still buying all the way up to ATH. I was like, oh, this is incredible. It's never gonna stop.
oh shit.
And yeah, and then I DCA'd a bit over time, and whatever. Point is, no, I'm still wrecked on Cliff overall, but life is good.
Bro, like I think a lot of people left a lot on the table, right?
Yeah,
So that's unfortunate. You'd hope that they'd remember us for like you can only lead the horse to water, dude. You can only lead the horse to water. You can't make him drink, right? That's the saying.
yeah,
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 it'd be better if they remember us for like, you know, helping make that opportunity where they could have secured the bag instead of like being like, oh, they're bad because we never secured the bag. Like that,
yeah. At
yeah,
least we gave you a bag to secure.
bro.
Yeah, if you
The big
fumbled the
bag.
bag, that's on you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Good call on that. I'm not mad. I just have to wait on my turn. I think it's gonna come back around.
Bro, I have
Very
a call.
optimistic.
I got a call. Some
Well, that concludes this show. We'll get to
yeah.
number 7 one day. Talk to you later, Joey.
Okay. Bye guys. Thanks. Thanks so
Later.
much.